Yaakov was married to Rachel and Leah, but he liked Rachel way more. So when Leah gives birth to Reuven, she's like, my husband has got to love me now, right? He didn't. Then came Shimon, and Leah said, God heard that my husband still doesn't love me. And then there was Levi. Third time's the charm. My husband's gotta love me now. Then came Judah. Fuck it. Yaakov's a deadbeat. I only have eyes for God. Welcome back to And God Was Like, Alma's weekly Torah portion series. I'm your host, Ariel Kaplan. This week, I'm breaking down Parashat Vayeshlach. It's super juicy and long, so I'm gonna zoom past all the boring parts because honestly, God, no one cares about the time that Yaakov made you an altar, okay? We're in it for the concubines. Chapter 28. Yaakov heads out to Haran to visit his uncle Lavan. He pops a few melatonin, uses a rock for a pillow because this bitch is hardcore, and he has a dream. He sees a stairwell to heaven with angels of God. God appears and gives Yaakov his whole spiel about the inheritance, yada, 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 yada. Yaakov wakes up and he's like, I didn't know there was a Jewish heaven. He pours some oil onto a rock. It's an altar for God. Chapter 29. So Yaakov heads east and he finds some dudes and he's like, hey, do you know where we are? Because I have no fucking idea where I am. They're from Haran. And yes, they do know his uncle Lavan. Speak of the devil, his daughter Rachel is right there. Basically, Yaakov gets a full-on boner from Rachel, runs over to her, kisses her without her consent, and then cries and tells her that they're related. Rachel runs home to daddy, tells him that her cousin gave her cooties, and then Lavan goes out and greets Yaakov, smooches and all. Why don't you marry Rachel or Leah? Better to keep it in the fam than to marry them off to like some schmuck. Yaakov has to work for Lavan for 7 years. 7 years later, Lavan throws a huge feast for the bride and groom, but there isn't actually a wedding ceremony. What does happen is Lavan brings Leah to Yaakov's tent so they can fuck. Yaakov was presumably so intoxicated, doesn't realize that he married the wrong girl until the morning. He's pissed. But Lavan promises Yaakov that he can marry Rachel in a week if he agrees to another 7 years of servitude. He does, and the sex with Rachel is so much better than with Leah. Yaakov casts Leah aside like chocolate hummus, and God was like, that is not how a gentleman treats a lady. He compensates Leah's lack of dick with a baby. Chapter 30. Yaakov might love Rachel more, but Leah's the one who's got all the kinderlach, so Rachel's really upset. She tells Yaakov that if he doesn't shoot a baby in her womb ASAP, she's gonna die. Yaakov is like, bitch, I'm not God. I can't give you fruit of the womb, but I can give you fruit of the loom. New plan. You're gonna fuck my maid. Bilhah gives birth to Naphtali and Dan. And Leah was like, not so fast. I have a concubine maidservant too, bitch. Her maidservant Zilpah gives birth to God, and Leah's like, yes. And then she gives birth to Asher, and Leah was like, beginner's luck, my tuchus. Reuven harvested mandrakes, which are an aphrodisiac. Rachel was like, Leah, give me some of that shit. And Leah was like, you crazy psycho bitch. In exchange for the mandrakes, I'll whore you out to my husband tonight. And Leah gives birth again to Issachar, Zebulun, and Dinah. God had been hitting snooze on his reminder to impregnate Rachel, but he finally does it and she gives birth to Joseph. Chapter 31. Lavan's been a real dick to Yaakov, cheating him out of his money and shit. Rachel steals her dad's idols to wean him off his false god addiction. Lavan was presumably taking a shit or something because he doesn't find out that the family left for 3 days. Lavan catches up to Yaakov and he's like, bro, why did you leave without saying bye? I had a whole surprise party planned with like timbrels and shit. You deserve a punch. I'm not gonna do it because God said not to fuck with you. I get it. You miss your dad. But why did you have to steal my idols? He's acting like these idols are his stuffed animal that he sleeps with at night. Truthfully, Yaakov had no idea that Rachel stole the idols, so he's like, search my tents, okay? But Rachel had shoved the idols up her puss. I'm just kidding. She put the idols into the camel's cushion seat and she told Lavan, I'm so sorry, Papa. I can't stand to greet you because I'm on my lady bits month. What do they call it? Like, I'm on my time of the month. Aunt Flo's here. And if I stand, it'll just gush everywhere. And that, my friends, is pussy power. Lavan and Yaakov make a pact to respect each other. Chapter 32. The angels of God roll out a red carpet to escort Rachel, Leah, and Yaakov to Canaan. I'll see you next week.